Yeah, that's a long, deep thought. Like, that's not in my focus. My focus right now is the team we're playing ahead, the Bears. So anything past that, I'm not really focused on, honestly. I'm thankful for it, but I'm not content, you know, with my situation, with everything. And we're leading this team.
I think Shedeur is a better player than Dillon Gabriel. I think drafting Dillon Gabriel in the third is pretty bold.
I didn't love that pick.
So my theory was they're no dummies. They've been around Jimmy long enough. They realize that, like, as Shedeur falls, he's going to force them to take Shedeur Sanders. So they go, listen, we'd love to take this guy in the 4th or 5th. Let's take him now, so it kind of shuts him up. But then Shedeur just kept plummeting. They didn't have a choice once they got to the 5th round when he's like, you got to do it. So my theory is they overdrafted him to shut up the owner. And because any visual you saw of Stefanski and Barry, he's right over their backs. Right? You see most rooms, the owner's next to him or in the corner, just like hanging out. He's right behind him, kind of hovering. I mean, that's a bizarre place.
Reports from within the Browns organization indicate that Jimmy Haslam is deeply engaged in discussions concerning Kevin Stefanski's future. This follows Shedeur Sanders' recent press conference, which reportedly unveiled disconcerting realities about his standing in Cleveland. Sanders' remarks, specifically his uncertainty about remaining with the team, the distinction of his situation compared to Cam Ward, and his assertion of needing to secure his presence next year, are said to have caused considerable apprehension within the front office. His comments regarding the nascent trust with his receivers, embracing a divinely inspired leap of faith and performing optimally only when secure in his environment, are being construed as veiled criticisms directed at the coaching staff, which allegedly marginalized him for an extended period. Insiders suggest Haslam is now recognizing that Stefanski's management of the Sanders situation might have jeopardized a potential playoff appearance and undermined the organization's overall credibility. Further adding to the complexity, Sanders disclosed that Coach Prime's expectations remain paramount, with his father's guidance consistently present during games. This has fueled speculation that Deion Sanders has been remotely advising his son through the Browns' internal discord, and this paternal influence could be the pivotal factor compelling Haslam to initiate a coaching change before potentially losing the unexpected franchise quarterback he inadvertently acquired.
Well, no, Jeffrey Sims, he's a great player, of course, and he bring that energy in the game, and I respect him, of course, going into the game, and even after the game and everything, that he's the competitor he is, and I was just excited, you know, to have that experience, to be able to play against him, you know, one of the best.
Sure, Kevin officially announced that you're going to get to start the 4 games. Obviously, you know, you talk about how you think of this opportunity.
But when your coach comes out and doesn't hold the starting quarterback accountable for not playing well, regardless of whether he is a young quarterback or not, doesn't watch the film, and immediately comes out in the press conference and says, I'm going to stick with Dillon Gabriel after the bye week, knowing that Myles Garrett isn't throwing his helmet on the sideline because he was upset that he didn't get more sacks. Myles Garrett was upset that his 5 sacks didn't matter. That is a massive problem in the locker room. And when you look at a guy like Shedeur Sanders, every chance Kevin Stefanski has gotten to put him down, to not put him in a position to be successful, he's done it. Kevin Stefanski owes it to the locker room to give Shedeur Sanders an opportunity.
It is imperative to analyze Shedeur Sanders' statements during this press conference, as a careful reading reveals the underlying reasons for Jimmy Haslam's reported consideration of a substantial organizational shift. The central theme reiterated by Sanders throughout the session was trust. A deeper examination of these events demonstrates a significance beyond a rookie quarterback addressing post-game inquiries. This concerns a young, emerging franchise quarterback subtly conveying signals, both explicit and implicit, regarding the internal disarray he has navigated in Cleveland, and how this disarray now poses a threat to the organization's stability. When questioned about his official designation as the starter, Sanders' response merits close attention. He stated, "I'm thankful for it, but I'm not content with my situation, with everything, and with leading this team. I'm not content with my situation." This is not a casual remark. It emanates from a franchise quarterback whose performance recently achieved historical benchmarks, yet who expresses dissatisfaction with the prevailing circumstances. For a rookie initially relegated to the depth chart for months, informed of a redshirt season, who then seizes an opportunity and immediately excels, to still voice discontent with his situation constitutes a clear message. It is understood that Jimmy Haslam fully comprehended this message, as sources indicate behind the scenes. Haslam is reportedly incensed by Stefanski's handling of Sanders from the outset. The owner introduced a 5th-round selection with a prominent surname, expecting a surge of enthusiasm, only for his coaching staff to sideline sideline the player and permit a media campaign to damage his reputation for months. Now, with Sanders demonstrating his genuine capabilities, Haslam is confronting a potentially squandered season and evaluating the number of victories Kevin Stefanski may have cost the team by delaying Sanders' opportunity from week 1.
Ties into a lot. You know, that ties into trust. That ties into knowing where you guys are going to be. That ties into everything. So that's where you see the improvement, because that we had that leap of faith, you know, this past week, with knowing that the receivers are going to be in the right places, looking at everybody in the eyes saying, I'm going to be there, I got you, building that foundation, building that trust. So when everything, like when I trust.
Was running only scout team drills, while Gabriel got every starter snap. Fans started connecting dots. Insiders started whispering. And suddenly the Browns' quarterback room looked like a political battlefield. What should have been a normal practice rotation turned into a civil war. Musgrave, the veteran coach, had enough. He went public. Standing at the podium, he praised Shedeur's work ethic like he was reading from a championship speech. He's learning by the day, getting the most out of every rep, Musgrave said, voice steady but eyes sharp.
The discourse gains further depth as Shedeur addresses his footwork improvements and their connection to broader principles. He articulated, I think footwork and all that ties into a lot. That ties into trust. That ties into knowing where your guys are gonna be. That ties into everything. So that's where you see the improvement, because we had that leap of faith this past week, with knowing that the receivers are gonna be in the right places, looking everybody in the eye saying, I'ma be there. I got you, building that foundation, building that trust. He subsequently emphasized, when I trust, then you get the best out of me. You get what I'm saying? It's hard for me as a player to not trust things and play my best. So I'm just thankful that we built those relationships that quickly within the receiver room and within the team and with the O-line and everything, but we're not content. And I trust, then you get the best out of me. Superficially, these statements appeared to pertain to trusting his pass catcher. However, considering the season's overarching context, where Sanders was initially fourth string, informed of a redshirt year, and implicitly lacked belief from the coaching staff while media narratives questioned his dedication, one must consider the environment for trust. How is peak performance achievable when the organizational trust is absent? Sanders' remarks implicitly address this, linking his on-field success directly to the level of trust within his operational environment. For months, this trust was reportedly deficient due to Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff's reluctance to provide a genuine opportunity. While Sanders has now cultivated trust with his teammates, including receivers and the offensive line, his omission of the coaching staff from this group is deemed significant, not coincidental.
Ties into a lot. You know, that ties into trust. That ties into knowing where you guys are going to be. That ties into everything. So that's where you see the improvement, because that we had that leap of faith, you know, this past week, with knowing that the receivers are going to be in the right places, looking at everybody in the eyes saying, I'm going to be there, I got you, building that foundation, building that trust. So when everything, like when
The phrase "I trust" is reportedly resonating with Jimmy Haslam, who has been attentive to these nuanced comments. When these are considered alongside other developments, such as Browns insiders acknowledging internal biases against Sanders, teammates like Alex Wright publicly commending Sanders' work ethic, and analysts like Shannon Sharp criticizing Stefanski's perceived undermining tactics, Haslam is reportedly concluding that his head coach might have permitted personal prejudices to derail a potential playoff campaign. When a reporter inquired about the catalyst for his leap of faith with receivers, Sanders' response was concise and potent: God did. Notably, he did not credit the coaching staff, Kevin Stefanski's system, or the play's design. This statement, attributing his trust in teammates to divine intervention, carries significant weight. For Jimmy Haslam, hearing his quarterback credit a higher power and teammates for his success but omitting the coaching staff signals a fundamental issue. Furthermore, greater insight emerged when Sanders discussed his decision-making process regarding throwing the ball away versus extending plays. His answer illuminated the perceived tension between his innate playmaking ability and the coaching staff's desired approach. He noted, Sometimes you get in situations where you gotta understand the play's over, and I'm improving in that. I had a little slip up last week for sure when knowing the play's over, but like, I don't know. In those situations, sometimes it's just like I wanna win so bad. I wanna make something happen whenever we're stagnant and stuff like that. I wanna make something happen when we're stagnant. This is interpreted as Sanders implicitly suggesting that the offense, under Stefanski's play calling, experiences periods of stagnation, and his natural inclination is to create opportunities from difficult circumstances, an instinct the coaching staff reportedly attempts to suppress. He continued, referencing a previous week's sack that moved them out of field goal range, stating, "Just learning from the week before when I took a sack that got us out of field goal position, I learned from that." And I was like, okay, knowing where we are on the field, understanding like, okay, I tried my first thing, it don't work, get it out.
You said your dad was going to get mad at you for that pick.
Yeah.
Did he? And what kind of advice did he give you?
Well, you got, like, during the game and everything, I always hear his voice, you know, like, in my ear. You know, I'm like in certain situations, certain everything, like, in a lot of situations, and I know his expectation for me. His expectation for me is the highest than anybody is, you know, so that's where.
This suggests Stefanski's guidance encourages a cautious approach in Shedeur, prioritizing avoidance of loss over aggressive play for victory. For a young quarterback possessing elite playmaking attributes, such an instructional method could impede development. Sources indicate this represents a significant point of discord between Haslam and Stefanski. The owner reportedly observed Shedeur executing exceptional off-platform throws, extending plays through scrambling, and exhibiting the elusive it factor characteristic of elite quarterbacks, while simultaneously perceiving his coach's efforts to mold Shedeur into a game manager focused on checkdowns and risk aversion. This trajectory is reportedly not aligned with the intent behind drafting a player like Sanders, a fact Haslam is said to recognize. However, the most revealing segment of the press conference reportedly occurred when Shedeur was questioned about his father's reaction to an interception. His response unveiled an aspect reportedly causing Jimmy Haslam considerable unease. Coach Prime's influence on Shedeur appears to be more substantial than Kevin Stefanski's, Shedeur stated. During a game and everything, I always hear his voice in my ear, in certain situations, in a lot of situations, and I know his expectation for me is the highest than anybody's. So that's where playing for him my whole life made it easier to come and play anywhere else, because his expectation, by saying anywhere else, Shedeur implies that Coach Prime's high standards render playing for the Browns, and specifically for Kevin Stefanski, comparatively less demanding. This is not interpreted as an endorsement of the current coaching staff.
Dad was going to get mad at you for that pick.
Yeah.
Did he? And what kind of advice did he give you?
Well, you got, like, during the game and everything, I always hear his voice, you know, like, in my ear. You know, I'm like in certain situations, certain everything, like, in a lot of situations, and I know his expectation for me. His expectation for me is the highest.
This revelation, according to sources, is a principal concern for Jimmy Haslam if Shedeur's primary coaching influence stems from his father rather than the Browns coaching staff. The efficacy of retaining Kevin Stefanski becomes questionable. The organization compensates a head coach millions, yet its franchise quarterback seemingly receives critical guidance from an external Hall of Fame figure who is also his parent. Haslam reportedly views this as an unfavorable situation, necessitating a choice: either accept Coach Prime as the de facto coach with Stefanski as a titular figure, or institute a change to secure a coach whom Shedeur genuinely trusts and respects. A particularly insightful moment arose when Sanders was queried about his post-game conversation with Cam Ward, specifically concerning off-season discussions. Shedeur's reply has fueled widespread speculation about his future in Cleveland. He commented, "My focus, this is my life here, so we on two different spectrums right now. I gotta focus on playing my best and being the best player I can for the team, and obviously the situations are different, so and I know he puts his all into these games in these final 4 games, but it's just a little bit different because you don't know what could happen. So I just go here, enjoy my day, work hard, do everything I can, and if I'm here, I'm here. It's nothing in my my control, so I try to control what I can control. If I'm here, I'm here. You don't know what could happen. It's nothing in my control. These statements do not reflect a quarterback secure in his professional environment. Instead, they convey the sentiment of a fifth-round draft pick who perceives a historical lack of organizational belief and uncertainty regarding future commitment. Despite his exceptional performance, his differentiation from Cam Ward's situation is an acknowledgement that Ward, as a top pick, received guaranteed financial and organizational investment, whereas Sanders, an overlooked fifth-rounder, had to contend for every opportunity.
Motherfucker, this is my life here, you know. So we on two different spectrums right now, you know. I gotta focus on playing my best and being the best player I can for the team, and obviously the situations are different. So I know he puts his all into these games and these Final Four games, but it's just a little bit different, you know, because you don't know what could happen, you know. So I just go here, enjoy my day, you know, work hard, do everything I can, and
Sources indicate this specific response profoundly alarmed Jimmy Haslam, a franchise quarterback publicly stating, "If I'm here, and you don't know what could happen," implies a perceived lack of value, desire, and organizational commitment to building around him. Accountability for this sentiment reportedly falls on Kevin Stefanski, the coach who reportedly marginalized him, withheld public acknowledgement for 2 months, substituted him for wildcat plays in critical moments, and seemingly attempted to suppress his innate playmaking abilities rather than cultivate them. However, the conclusive point reportedly occurred when Shedeur was questioned about Ethan Puchek's season-ending injury. His reply highlighted his regard for teammates who showed belief in him. Contrasting with the coaching staff's perceived skepticism, he stated, "Ethan definitely hurt that he was out because the responsibility he took in helping everybody. Whenever I was able to come in and have that different level of comfort, so I truthfully hope I could play with him next year. I hope he's around next year. I really do, but I'm gonna make sure I'm around too next year. I hope he's around next year, but I'm gonna make sure I'm around too." Sanders' expression of hope for his center's return next season, coupled with his own uncertainty about his future, underscores his perceived instability in Cleveland. This, sources suggest, represents the final critical factor for Jimmy Haslam. It is deemed unfeasible to construct a franchise around a quarterback who publicly doubts his tenure, to develop a young talent who expresses such public uncertainty, or to achieve consistent victories with a quarterback who speaks of his presence as conditional, as if anticipating a trade or release. Such a profound level of uncertainty is attributed directly to the coaching staff's initial handling of Sanders.
Yeah, Luke definitely a hungry dog, so we gotta get that back connection going. But Ethan, it definitely hurt that he was out, because the responsibility he took, you know, in helping everybody. Whenever I was able to come in and have that different level of comfort, you know. So I truthfully hope I could play with him next year, and I hope he's around next year. You know, I really do.
Internal sources report that Jimmy Haslam has engaged in private consultations with various league figures regarding Kevin Stefanski's tenure. He is reportedly seeking insights from other owners, coaches, and front office executives on managing a scenario where a head coach seemingly lacked conviction in the team's most promising player. The prevailing counsel suggests a change is warranted. This assessment is underpinned by Shedeur Sanders' recent historical performance, making him the first Browns quarterback since 1950 to achieve 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in a single game. His 360-yard, 4-touchdown outing places him in an elite rookie cohort, including Joe Burrow, C.J. Stroud, Andrew Luck, and Matthew Stafford. These are metrics indicative of a franchise quarterback capable of altering an organization's trajectory. Yet Kevin Stefanski reportedly obstructed this progression by relegating Sanders to 4th string, denying him first-team repetitions, permitting an unchecked media narrative to undermine him, and removing him during critical plays even after standout performances. Haslam is now reportedly reflecting on missed opportunities, considering a 5-8 record and contemplating the potential outcomes had Sanders started from week 1, or if the offense had been tailored to his strengths rather than forcing him into an incompatible system. These are the pressing strategic questions reportedly driving Haslam toward a coaching alteration, recognizing that a head coach is more readily replaced than a franchise quarterback. Currently, the Browns possess a 22-year-old quarterback displaying the hallmarks of exceptional talent provided the organization avoids missteps. However, Stefanski's actions throughout the season are perceived as having consistently undermined this potential. Sanders' press conference, with its subtle critiques, repeated emphasis on trust and uncertainty, and references to Coach Prime's influential voice, has reportedly cemented Haslam's conviction that a change is essential. The question is no longer whether Stefanski will be dismissed, but when. Sources suggest this could occur as early as the regular season's conclusion, or potentially sooner if questionable coaching decisions continue to contribute to losses in winnable games. Jimmy Haslam has reportedly recognized a critical truth: Kevin Stefanski's perceived ego and obstinacy nearly jeopardized a franchise quarterback, an outcome deemed unacceptable.